So to those that are new to my channel, I'm here to talk to you guys about how I got into tech consulting. And a lot of people have been asking me like, what is tech consulting? I still have my parents that like, I give them the best explanation ever. And they're like, why would they hire you? And they're like, oh, you know, like they don't work at big companies in the corporate side, so they wouldn't really know. But maybe I can try to explain it to the best of my ability for you guys. If you're new to this channel, I like to focus more on professional development, career development, personal development, and also like my lifestyle as a consultant. If you were to go to the tech industry, it's either data analytics or a programmer or maybe like a web design or something like that. But not a lot of people think about tech consulting because it's kind of a mix of technology and business. And I think it's like a really valuable field to be in, especially if you're new and fresh out of college. So let's dive in and see exactly if tech consulting is for you. I'm gonna go into what is tech consulting and even like what are the pros and cons of tech consulting. So what is tech consulting? A lot of people are like, they kind of know what management consulting is, but they don't necessarily know what tech consulting is. I think I would put into 3 categories. One would be mostly tech strategy, and that's really gonna be like what corporate strategy could the company or client implement that involves tech. It could be digital transformations, it could be e-commerce, or moving on to a whole different platform. So that is considered tech strategy. And when it comes to the second category is going to be focused more on software implementations, and that's where I lie. Software implementations are, and a lot of people get this confused, is that I do Workday financial software implementations. What this means is that I work with Workday, the software, to clients. My client is not Workday. The same happens for like SAP consultant, Oracle consultant. They are not working for SAP or Oracle. They implement Oracle and SAP to clients because Oracle and SAP and Workday, they're really focused on actually honing in on their software. That's really what their company really is. And then clients would just be hiring consultants to do this because their IT department cannot do this on their own. They don't have the expertise or the certifications, and sometimes they just don't want to spend the money to hire these people just to fire temporarily. So, some companies do hire internal consultants for this, but majority are going to hire consulting companies specifically on this software implementation, and then once the project's over, it's over. The third category is that the client has a project of their own, but they again don't have the actual capacity or bandwidth to work with it. So they hire a consulting company to do this for them. Like literally, consultant is a very fluid term for hiring someone from the outside to do work for you. Consultants are almost like contractors where you're part of a consulting company, but you're not hired into the client itself. A lot of people get this confused, and this is actually where my parents fall, and they're like,
why would they hire you? Why can't they just hire themselves? Well,
because our entire business is focused on honing in on those skills and those specialties. So clients would mostly be hiring from a consulting company rather than the actual employees into their company to do this on their own. With this, that's why tech consultant companies exist. The other thing that I mentioned is that you are experts in your own field in a consulting company because that's exactly what you specialize. You either specialize in an industry or skill. For me, I specialize in a skill, but not in an industry. I have my Workday financial certifications and skills honed into experience. So why consulting? This is a really good field for you to get into because this is really nice to see exactly what industries you may be interested in, and you can join consulting companies to learn a lot more than if you were to be stuck in a company. When a consulting company, you can be with like 4 to 5 clients over the past like 3 years or so. And then with that, you can get so much experience from doing so many different things. You won't be pigeonholing yourself with one industry, one client, or one type of project. You can move all over the place with whatever your consulting company can offer. What I also do like, and this is why I recommend doing consulting early on in your career, is because that there's going to be a lot of travel, and a lot of people like consulting for this reason because you can travel a lot more. How consulting really works is that you have a client, you have an objective and a project that you have in line. There's a project timeline. They do have project stages depending on how your project is going to be like. In most technology consulting projects, there's going to be a design, prototype, testing session, and a deploying session. Depending on where you are, you can actually be on site a lot more, or you may be on site the entire time, depending on the client if they have the budget. What are the skills needed for tech consulting, or even consulting in general? Well, I have this list right here. Well, first off, you need to have those people and relationship skills. And in general, like that's super important because you can be great at your job, but if you can't communicate to the client and they don't like you, then you're gonna struggle a lot because they need to be able to trust you to really rely on you for the project itself. It doesn't necessarily mean it has to be within your team. Team management and working within a team is very important, but you need to also be able to hold good relationships with your client. You also need to be able to think on your feet. So if you are on site and you're going to be right in front of the client, you can't always have the answers. You will have to probably be asking a lot of questions about it and then say, hey, I will follow up with you after this meeting, and then maybe follow up in an email. But you need to be really good at like thinking on your feet, because if you say that all the time, then they're gonna not trust you and think that you don't know anything, and they're paying you so much and billing you so much for very little value. You also need flexibility, creativity. You need to be data-driven, leader, team player, future-forward, communication, and problem-solving and professionalism. To summarize to you, you need to be someone that they can trust, but also be very flexible, because you will never know how the situation will be. The project can go really badly, the project can go really well, but you always need to be prepared. If you're not prepared, then at least be flexible and think on your feet to really see how you can provide value to the best of your ability. Whew, a lot of talking. Peep that. So here are the pros and cons of technology consulting. One is that because if you're going to many different industries, many different clients, different types of projects, you'll have a lot of skills and experience from each of them, either working in those industries or working with specific people. But also in general, you can have a better sense of like what industries you may be falling with, or maybe like what type of work you like to do. Like you could start at a technology consulting company saying, I want to do data analytics. Then you do a data analytics project and you're like, I don't like this. Well, what else could we do? Well, I could do something like web design. I could do a web design project with this client. And then like, oh, I really like this. So you can tend to either move on into web design for your next project or try something else. So at the end of the day, you can have all this experience but staying within one company, one paycheck, one employer. So that's actually a really good benefit, and that's why a lot of people join consulting companies, is because a lot of people don't actually know what they want to do. So they do consulting to really try out all of these industries, try out all these types of projects and line of work. And some of them even go, maybe I don't want to do tech, maybe I can join the strategy or management consulting portion of Accenture. There's going to be a lot of travel. Not all projects are going to have a lot of travel. You can get to go to a lot of cool cities, a lot of cool countries. For me, I was blessed to be able to go to another country. In fact, for me, I was able to go to 3 countries for one of my projects, but it's actually pretty rare when it comes to traveling to go to another country, but it does happen. That I like to do more project-based. I didn't like to be doing task-based work where you would be doing the same thing every day and then you're just like moving on, trying to pushing tasks out and having a to-do list. I like project-based, so at least I'm invested for a longer period of time. And I mean, there's still tasks within the project, but at least there's some kind of start to end and a goal from it. Because of that, you will have new challenges. They're not going to be predefined like, hey, you're going into consulting, you're going for this project, and they're gonna tell you like, okay, do this, do that. No, sometimes you may completely out of scope, and you may not even be able to do that at all. So as I mentioned before, you can be jumping to many different industries and skills. I really liked that. I knew exactly what I wanted to do out of college, which was actually tech consulting, but what I didn't know was, what do I want to do after tech consulting? And I could technically stay in tech consulting for the rest of my life if I wanted to, but it's a good way to see what industry I resonate with. Maybe I didn't like when I was in this finance company, maybe I did like when I was a nonprofit, and I can see what kind of environment I would fall into, or maybe learning more about the business before I get into it. Another pro is that when it comes to your resume itself, having a big consulting company on your resume itself will look really good, because you can say that consulting companies do hire top talent. They do hire people that can think and problem solve and do critical thinking, so that's ideal when it comes to consulting companies. So a lot of companies do like people from consulting companies because they can do the very things I mentioned before: think on their feet, be flexible, creative, and work with people as well. So another thing I wanted to mention, and I mentioned it briefly, is that because of all these skills that you're having, they're excellent exit opportunities. You can either go to another consulting company or you can go to the client side. You understand the industries, you understand the work that would need to come behind. Now you've opened up the world to everything. So when it comes to consulting, it's broad enough but also very specified to what you may want to do to be able to go for those exit opportunities that would really help with you. And then this is just a little plus from like all the travel that you want to do, is you can have a lot of credit card mileage and frequent flyer and hotel points. So I am guilty of this, of using my credit card a lot, but not because I don't have the money, but because the consulting companies pay for it. So if I were to go on a consulting trip to a client on site, like maybe in Miami, they would pay for my flight, my Uber, and they would pay for my hotel and the food. So that is like almost like a fully expense paid trip to work and make money. So I went into detail of like why you should do consulting, or why I like to do consulting specifically. So now why not do consulting? Because a lot of times these may seem like really magical, but then when you're actually into it, then you may be like, well, this is not really what I want to do, and I want to be transparent with you because, but then at a certain point it does wear down on you. So here are some reasons why consulting may not be for you. Because it's in a project and it's not necessarily predictable, there's always gonna be volatility in the work you're doing and the hours. There was a time in a project where I actually worked 12 hours, and then there was a time I worked 5 hours. This was like all within the same project, and some of them could be on site, some of them could be in your hotel room, some of them could be literally at home when you're working from home if your client did not require travel. Those kind of situations could be hard if you're trying to time around your lifestyle and work-life balance around. So for example, if I had like a boxing class scheduled at 8 p.m. and then all of a sudden the client scheduled something at 8 p.m. Not to mention, like, you may not even be in the same time zone as your client. So I may have a client in China, so now I may actually have to wake up at like 2 a.m. for their call at 2 p.m. So those kind of situations are going to be a given. You can't necessarily control this because this is the time zone. The best way to do it is if you were there, but then you have to deal with jet lag and actually getting there, and a lot of time spent away from home from that alone, just the travel portion. If you were there, then it's great, but then the actual travel portion, if you do that every week, it can really wear down on you. This is mostly when it comes to management consulting, is that your client may not actually accept your recommendation. So this is going to be very similar if you were working a corporate job, you made a recommendation to your team and they shot it down. But when it comes to consulting, that is your job. Like, your job is literally to make a recommendation. You may not get that fulfillment, that they may want to say, okay, we don't want that, think of something else. Because at the end of the day, they are billing you, but if they're not happy with their job, they can completely fire you. That is something that can happen. Your project can be cut short, or it could be extended. So in my case, I did have projects that got extended multiple times. What ended up being half a year project could be 2 years. There's a lot of client politics when it comes to that as well, because what is the politics of the client ends up being your politics as well, and it can affect the project either through funding or the people that are on the project itself. So I keep mentioning about traveling, and what I did mention is that you can go to these cool, amazing locations like China, Denmark, Florida, California, all those cool things, but you could be stuck on a client that could be in the middle of nowhere, like maybe North Dakota, and then you could be stuck traveling there every week or every other week or once a month. But at a certain point, it won't even be that fun anymore, because first 2 times you kind of explored more, saw what you exactly wanted to do, you did everything you wanted to do, but then you have to come back time and time and time again. So now it's really just another location you need to go to. It's not necessarily a vacation anymore. On the same vein of traveling, it not necessarily is going to be that fun at all. Sometimes, depending on when your client meeting could be on a Monday, if it's in the morning, you may have to leave Sunday night. So you may actually have to cancel your Sunday plans or pack Sunday afternoon and basically only have like a 1.5 day on your weekend, and then maybe some of your Friday. So you do have that very unpredictable schedule that sometimes you may need to leave on a Sunday. When it comes to the ideal travel schedule, most people fly out Monday morning and then they come back Thursday afternoon or Thursday night. However, there's sometimes when you may need to leave on a Sunday night and even come back Friday night, or even on a Saturday morning. I did have a situation where I had to leave Saturday morning because I had a meeting Friday afternoon and then there were just no flights coming back home on a Friday night, so I had to do Saturday. The good thing is that I could still have some more time to explore like Friday night, but the bad thing is that it cuts into my weekend. The other thing that you may have noticed is that I do have cats, and the issue with consulting is that if I were to live alone, I cannot have cats. And this is the same with like kids, but I was lucky enough to have my boyfriend living with me so he can take care of the cats when I am away. But in general, that's going to be a con for some people, and maybe even a deal breaker for some, that you can't be home for your kids, your dog, your cat. You don't always want to be calling for a pet sitter, so that could be like a deal breaker for some people if you really wanted a dog or really wanted kids, but you can't be home for them all the time. A lot of times the client just wants you to be on site and you don't really have an excuse unless you're taking PTO or there's like an actual emergency. So probably from the pros and cons that I've mentioned before, you can kind of see why I like tech consulting. It's mostly, for me specifically, if I were to pick and choose what I wanted to do, it's the fact that I'm learning so much from different industries with different skills. I get to travel, and at this time, because I'm in my 20s, this is the best time to do it for me. And not to mention, I do have a boyfriend that can take care of the cats when I'm away. So I get the best of both worlds of having a home environment with my cats and with my boyfriend, but also be able to go travel the world and see all these cool sites under $0. If you're interested in learning more about technology consulting, please let me know. You can leave it in the comments below if you have any other questions. I will do my best to answer every single one of them. And I do have a video coming out on exactly how I got into Accenture. And to people who don't know what Accenture is, it is a top technology consulting company in the world. I can't say enough how many great experiences I had with Accenture. There's always gonna be ups and downs like with every company, but with Accenture, it was like the best experience I've ever had in any of my internships or jobs. I really want to talk into how I got into Accenture, so maybe if you're interested in technology consulting, you can join me in Accenture as well. So if you like the content of this video, please give me a thumbs up and leave some comments below. This would really help me, especially because I just started out my YouTube channel. I want to be able to engage with you and also help other people discover videos like this. So maybe if they're interested in technology consultant, or maybe they don't even know what they want to do in their jobs, they're in college and they're still trying to do career discovery, this would really help them. And please share this video to anyone that you think would be helpful for this. Thank you so much and see you next time. Bye. Look at all this cat fur. This is what happens when you love to wear black. And yes, I'm a New Yorker, so I have to wear black, but like, look at this. Like, if you want a white cat specifically, this will be the problem you get. I don't understand. You tell me. Comment below if you have a cat.